Hello, dear friends. It's Carly Whorton, and welcome back to Owning Authenticity. In our quest to simplify natal charts, we have come to the part of the process where we discuss planets, luminaries, and other space bodies. Lots to cover here. And in the last video, we saw that the natal chart wheel itself around the outside consists of 12 zodiac signs. Each of those symbols, the different colors around the outside, are each their own zodiac sign. So that is a space in the sky that is named after each of these zodiacs. And that space in the sky has its own characteristics, its own archetype for what patterns of energy exist in that space in the sky. And then as the planets move, so these different symbols inside the wheels, those are the planets that we've chosen to include on our chart. And those are planets. They're also luminaries, and we'll get into what that means, and other space bodies that exist. And then natal, if we're talking about your natal planetary placements, we are talking about where the planets were at the time of your birth. That is all that natal means. So luminaries, to differentiate them from bodies or from planets, luminaries are the light sources. So the sun is a luminary, the moon is a luminary, stars are luminaries, and then planets have physical mass. They are not light generating, they are whatever a planet is. You see the depth of my knowledge there. So you see how they're different. So the luminaries have their own set of properties, just like each planet has its own set of properties. So when we look at some of the more common things that you'll find in your natal chart, all of these, minus the Earth usually doesn't appear in the natal chart. But each of these bodies has its own energetic personality, its own energetic influence, its own agenda, that this planet is concerned with these things. Each of them has their own different story and mythology and origins wrapped around its own discovery. And therefore, like each of these planets has its own influence as far as all of them represent the various sides of the human experience. So by studying each one individually, you pick up a whole nother facet to who you are. And really every single body that you could put on the natal chart works the same way. These just happen to be some really common players that we see in natal charts. But as you'll see here pretty quick, there are lots that you could include on a natal chart, much more than just what we see on the screen at just the planets. So each space body also has its own orbit, and based on how far away it is from the sun, the further away it is, the longer it's going to take it to orbit around the sun. So each of these planets, or any body that you would include on a natal chart, is going to have its own orbit and its own duration to make its full lap. And so in that, again, that kind of plays a part in the personality of that planet. For example, Mercury is the closest to the sun, and therefore it laps the sun the fastest. And because of that, a big piece of Mercury's personality is that it's related to our intellect, to our thinking minds, to just the general energy that exists inside our brains, so to speak. Our Mercury sign can tell us a lot about that area of our being. And because Mercury moves so fast, Mercury itself is said to be very, very quick, firing on all cylinders. And that's why when you take Mercury and put it in, say, a water sign, where water is fluid and densely packed because it's so full of fluid, and all of this is interconnected. It's just never ending and vast, and one thing leads to another. Mercury has a really hard time navigating typically in a water sign because that's just not really compatible. Mercury wants to move really fast, and water generally is, stuck at its own pace, so to speak. So yeah, it's interesting to study each individual planet and its personality and then compare it to the sign that it is in your particular birth chart to learn about that facet of ourselves. So each planet that you would include on your natal chart represents an archetype. And then depending on the zodiac sign that it's in, it flavors the approach and the specifics of the planet's agenda. So, what that means, for example, Mars. Mars, in this example, is located in Pisces at the top left corner of the natal chart picture is Pisces. Mars is the circle with the arrow coming off of it, and then right next to it is the North Node. So, all of that is right there together in Pisces. And Mars, much like Mercury, Mars operates in a fire sign. Typically, it rules Aries, which is a fire sign, which is all about initiating and going for it, and our inner warrior that fights for what matters to us and really asserts ourselves and stands up for our independence no matter what. And Pisces is a loving, humanitarian fish that swims in the depths of, like, it's basically a mermaid that loves everyone and wants to transcend the human experience. So the idea of being a warrior compared to Pisces, it's like an oxymoron almost. And yet here you see that Mars is located in Pisces. And so that is going to look and manifest very differently than if Mars was in Aries. So that's a perfect example of how this particular sign where the planet is located can really change how that planet's energy is able to manifest through the person carrying that energy. Many, many space bodies floating around the sky. And this that the picture that's on the screen here is completely impossible to look at. It is not meant to be interpreted. It is an example of how many things you can really put on a chart. So this chart is kind of the complete opposite of just sun sign pop astrology. Like, that we are each one zodiac sign. No, we are all 12 of them. I have a whole video about how we're all 12 zodiac signs. And this is proving that point that, like, I've put so many things on the chart here that I have every single zodiac sign covered with my placements on this chart. So some more than others, absolutely. But they're all represented. You know, we are all carrying an imprint that includes all 12 zodiac signs because the sky is full and every single zodiac sign contained something at the moment of your birth. So understanding which planetary bodies are present in each zodiac sign for you can really help you kind of connect into the energies that you're less familiar with. Like, for example, this is my chart that I have here on the screen. And in Aquarius, I only have one asteroid, the asteroid Pallas. And until I started working with the asteroids and putting those in the chart, I had a really hard time connecting to my personal Aquarius energy because I didn't really have any anchors there in terms of planets to look at and try to ground into what that energy looked like for me. And then when I found Pallas and Aquarius type descriptions, it all started coming together. So to a certain extent, I do recommend playing around with more and more of the different bodies that you can add to your natal chart, especially if there's one that you're having a harder time connecting with. Trying to find something that exists in that energy can be helpful to be able to ground into that one. So that is a really good overview of the planets, luminaries, and other bodies that exist in the sky. As always, keep it simple and one step at a time. There is plenty of meat on this bone, plenty of interesting things to get to learn about astrology and natal charts and our unique cosmic signatures. And the more we can relax into a fun pace of getting to soak up this empowering knowledge, the more empowering it will be. So nothing to stress about, nothing serious is really going on here. This is all an opportunity for understanding ourselves a little bit better. And with that in mind, I am honored to be a part of you sitting in that space of getting to know yourself on an even deeper level. more about me on my website, owningauthenticity.com. You can always reach out to me at owningauthenticity@gmail.com. As always, dear friends, thank you so much for listening. Until next time, you take good care of yourselves. And so will I.